Hello everyone, Mr. Happy here, and today I wanted to do a Final Fantasy XIV thoughts video. It's been a while since I've done one of these, and when I do them, I'm generally just spitballing ideas or thoughts about something that's a pretty hot topic in the community right now. Now, of course, the big topic that everybody's talking about is the game is in a stale state right now, and I think that's pretty normal. It reminds me a lot of 2.0, and it doesn't really surprise me all too much. I've been taking my time to enjoy other games at this point while I wait for the next content patch, and I'll be doing the same between 3.1 and 3.2, even with that deadly relic grind coming up. But regardless, there's one thing in particular that people are talking about within this game is in a stale state argument, and that is middle core rating. They believe that is a big reason why the game has hit such a stale state for a lot of players. Now, I am somebody who does believe that middle core rating is a very important thing in any MMO, because you need people to feel like they're progressing on something. You always want to feel like your character is growing in some way, whether that's your player skills or your player's gear. There needs to be that level of challenge that attracts you and attracts new players to test their skills at certain points. Now, middle core, let me just describe what I believe middle core to be. You have soft core, middle core, and hard core. Soft core is what we would consider like Alexander Normal, Ravana, and Bismarck. They are somewhat challenging to some people, especially when you're brand new, but you generally beat them fairly easily after a few tries, even in the Duty Finder. Party Finder with Bismarck and Ravana is a little bit different, but when those hit the Duty Finder, I expect a lot of people will see clears on those as well. And that's good and all, it's good for getting through, getting some loot, getting some story, but it doesn't generally feel that rewarding at the end of it. Then you have hardcore, which is what Savage is really supposed to be. Hardcore is just where you're trying to masochistically test your skills as a player and raise them to the highest bar that you can reach. You're trying to overcome challenges that may be considered really ridiculous to a lot of people, but it's something that you enjoy regardless. Now, to say that there may be some middle core content in the game, some people consider the first two bosses of Alexander Savage to be middle core because they were tuned for around I-190 to I-195, and we have way more loot than that now, even if you haven't been clearing Alexander Savage simply through esoterics. And with that in mind, sure, that's great. Let's consider them middle core bosses. That's still only 2 middle core bosses, 4 to 6, depending on what you ask, casual bosses, and then 2 hardcore bosses. Most consider 3 and 4 to be more hardcore. So what can the game really do to reach out to these middle core players a little bit more? I have a few ideas, and I'm sure there are ideas that have been thrown around there in the past, but I'll just give you what I think they could do going forward to make sure that the middle core raiders, who I believe to be very important to the game's health, can really please them a little bit more. So the first thing I think they can do, increase Alexander Normal's difficulty to better transition into Savage. Now, I'm not saying it needs to be the exact same difficulty as the second or final coil of Bahamut, but I would like it if it was at least what they initially said it would be. Second coil and final coil, whatever, they just said coil with Echo. Yes, Echo was after the nerfs came out and they added the Echo to those fights. And you know what? Even after that point, a lot of people still felt really good about progressing on a lot of those bosses, going from 6 to 9, and then eventually getting to work on Final Coil. Heck, I watched Debo stream him duty finding all of the coil from 1 through 13. He did them all in order. And you know what? It was something that he could log in and look forward to every day. Even if he had to get like a few bad parties, every pull was exciting to him. And it was great to watch, and it's probably a good feeling, even as someone who, yes, maybe middle core, but is more leaning towards the bottom of the middle core, where you play kind of at your own pace and you're not looking for a static group. And if you have a static, going through these things and still conquering them for the first time does still feel good if it's matching your difficulty. Now, that being said, I wanted to transition into Savage better, meaning that one's difficulty spike up through 4, more matches when you hit 4 going into Savage 1, it's an easier transition. So let's look at it like this. Imagine that 1 and 2 were considered casual content. 3, 4, and then Savage 1 and 2 were considered middle core, and then 3 and 4 were considered hardcore. That would at least stretch out the middle core rating tier. You could even take it a step further and make 2 and Savage 3 middle core as well. Of course, that only leaves one really casual boss, which is a problem, but then again, with things like the Void Arc coming around and the Free Company airship explorations, which I don't expect to be a middle core equivalent to the game, I think that that's fine. There's a lot of casual content already in the game, and as they add new patches, more and more content becomes casual, or becomes more accessible, I guess is the right word I should say. So I think that that's fine. But regardless, that's one solution they can take without really needing to change the formula around how normal versus savage works. The next idea I have, and this is one I honestly am not a big fan of, create a hard difficulty for Alexander, which means you have normal, hard, and savage. Now, I am not the biggest fan of this idea for multiple reasons. One, we already are sick and tired of farming normal and then going into savage and seeing the same bosses. It's a huge complaint from everyone else, and it's one I completely agree with. It's practically the reason why I don't go back to normal and farm every week, and even when I do, I don't even try to get loot that I actually need. I just try to get something from one of them so I don't even need to go back, so I don't need to look at that boss ever again. So adding a hard difficulty would just increase that feeling even more. Additionally, if you add another difficulty in there, you now have to compensate for that difficulty in terms of item level. Are you now only rewarding hard and savage with item level increases while normal is a true story mode? Do you add another bit of item level so all three of them reward gear and thus increase the item level bloat a little bit more? There's so many things that I feel can go wrong with this, but it is the, I guess, most normal way of kind of adding middle core, literally shoving a middle core difficulty in there. But I mean, even then, I don't know if it'll really have the same feeling if you made it the same difficulty as the second coil or final coil. I don't know that people would necessarily really enjoy it on that same level. So that's like a last resort to me, is them adding a hard difficulty to Alexander. And you know what? My final solution, develop another raid altogether that is directly designed for middle core raiders. And yes, I know what I'll be saying if they do that like a month after it's done. Man, I wish this had a savage difficulty. But you know what? A middle core raid with a base difficulty at least, even if they decided to add a savage to it, a middle core raid from start to finish, something that mimics second and final coil. I'm avoiding saying first coil because first coil was a mess in a lot of ways, and I don't want them to replicate that coil at all. But second and final coil, with its own story, with its own, because then, you know, when you're progressing through it at the middle core, it feels better to progress through a raid, I guess, when it's on a middle core difficulty, because every victory is also a victory for the story. You get to learn a little bit more about the game, and you always have that to look forward to, that next cutscene. And that's, I feel like, a feeling that a lot of people don't have with Alexander, because normally kind of blew through. We don't have really any history to go on with Alexander. This is setting the precedent for Alexander. So the next sets of floors will probably feel better to clear story-wise, but with normal being as easy as it is, it still won't have that I overcame something to get this kind of feeling, even if it's not like a massive feeling altogether. But the problem with this is, and this is the biggest problem probably with the development team in general, the development team for Final Fantasy XIV is incredibly small despite the increased popularity of the game. Which means that yes, while they are able to develop content that is within the safe boundaries that they've set for themselves within the past, however, 2 years at this point, it means that they can't really develop more without more time and more delays between patches. And that's something that a lot of people, even the dev team themselves, admits can't do or won't do. They will not wait that extra bit of time. We are not even 3 months past the expansion point and people are already like, we need more, we need more, we need more. So increasing the development time, even if it did increase the number of bosses or did add another one of these middle core raids, it wouldn't work. So the big thing is, I feel they finally need to buckle down, increase the size of the development team. This can bring fresh ideas into the development team. It can make it so they're able to develop multiple raids. They're able to develop the ideas they already have set up, the safe ideas, at a faster pace. It means you don't have to do things like sacrifice a hard mode dungeon to work on other features of the game like Lords of Verminion and the Free Company airship exploration. I think it's about time. We got to see what the development team looks like in the Rising. Obviously, the credits for the game are way bigger than the development team actually is. But I think it might be time to finally increase the size of the development team, specifically when it comes to designing raiding. There are plenty of people out there with plenty of great ideas who have a lot of background in raid and game design. They need to reach out to these resources, teach them the way that their internal, that their company works on the inside, or how they develop things from the inside, and really get this done. I'm sure there are plenty more ideas they could do to add middle core raiding. I would love to see more middle core raids, because you know what? Even as a hardcore raider, even though you clear the middle core raids a little bit, a lot quicker than, Alexander Savage was cleared, it's still fun to progress through them while you're not like super over geared for it, It's an adequate challenge then, and then eventually it falls off and it's something that you don't really look forward to every week, but That's not who we're targeting here. We're not targeting the people like me who are masochistic and want to be challenged to the maximum at all points and want the fight to be perpetually hard. Like, I'm literally irrelevant in, middle core rating. But I want them to have what they want. I want the middle core raiders to have their raid and to have something that feels good for them to clear, as well as a stepping stone for soft core players to move into the middle core, to move into the hardcore. Let me know what you guys think. I know a lot of you agree with me because so many people have come to me asking when it comes to, do you think they could add more middle core raids? Do you think they could make the game more middle core centric? Whatever it is, let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section of the video below. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share for more Final Fantasy XIV. And as you can see from the past few days, I've been branching off and playing quite a few other games and uploading the clips from those from Twitch. So hopefully you guys can go like and enjoy those as well. Anyway, I will see you all on the next video. And until then, take care.